How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Marshall. Today is February 11th, 2021, and today we're obviously going to focus on the potentially major blockbuster snowstorm that could affect not only the Northeast but the entire eastern half of the United States from the Midwest to the Southeast. This is going to affect millions of people. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the GFS forecast run right around 108 hours from now. And you see this is just an extensive band of snow extending from Texas all the way to Missouri, Illinois, and the Ohio River Valley, as it's just a fairly broad storm when it comes to precipitation, and it came off the Pacific Northwest at a pretty strong strength at 995 millibars, where we saw the storm come ashore and we saw bring a lot of snow with it, and just a very broad area of precipitation that's affecting a lot of the Northwest Pacific. And not only that, another key thing that this storm is bringing is a lot of cold air, and the air it's bringing is so cold that we're even seeing some snow in the lower elevations of Washington and Oregon, which really signifies how cold this air is right behind this storm. And it's as a result of a negative Arctic oscillation pattern we're currently in. Right now, the westerly winds in the northern hemisphere are very weak because there's a very weak ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, and there's also a very weak low pressure system that's located in the North Atlantic. And as a result, the westerly winds are very weak, so it isn't really steering that cold Canadian air straight from west to east. Now it has more of a chance to meander and get manipulated by northerly winds a little bit more, because the westerly winds are very weak at this time. And as a result, this very cold Arctic air and this very cold ridge is moving further south thanks to the influence of these northerly winds, and the westerly winds aren't strong enough to really influence it much and to keep that cold air from moving further south to the United States. So as a result, we're going to be in a pattern where there's just going to be we're going to be in a big jet stream dip in a big polar vortex throughout the United States, and it's going to create a lot of snowstorms out of this, thanks to the increased amount of unstable air throughout the United States. So keep in mind if you're all throughout the United States, because we're in a pattern that's going to promote snowstorm activity throughout the United States from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. And this snowstorm is going to maybe the perfect example of that, as it's coming off the Northwest Pacific, like I said, very strong. And you see it's dumping heavy snow throughout the higher elevations of Utah, Idaho, Nevada. You guys definitely need to worry about over a foot of snow headed into this Sunday, this weekend. So keep in mind that. And then we begin to see it approach the Midwest right around late Sunday and headed into early Monday, where you see that despite the very high mountains that are located in this area right around the Rocky Mountain ranges, it isn't enough to really kill off this low pressure system or make it lose much momentum. Because what typically happens is that when a low pressure goes over very mountainous terrain, it usually weakens, because as a result of increased friction, it forces the air to divert away from the low pressure system, which decreases convergence in the low pressure system. And with decreased convergence, it means that the low pressure isn't able to maintain itself without a lot of air molecules converging in the low pressure system. So typically the low pressure systems usually weaken as they move over mountainous terrain, such as the Rocky Mountain ranges. However, this storm is so strong, and there's just so much unstable air right around the Rocky Mountain ranges that it's maintaining its strength, and it's also maintaining a lot of its moisture as well. So the Midwest might see a lot more snow than you typically see, especially if you're this far south in the Midwest, where I'd at that point call it the southern United States, where Oklahoma and Texas are getting involved with this storm. And the snow line is almost going as far south as Mexico and Texas border, which really shows how powerful this polar vortex is and how much cold air is really behind this storm and how much of a dip of a jet stream there is. And this is a very dire looking situation. This looks like it'll produce something very potent. It looks like it'll produce a very powerful mid-latitude cyclone thanks to how much unstable air there is. And it seems like both the GFS model and the European model are agreeing that some sort of major mid-latitude cyclone will form this headed into early next week, where we're going to see a lot of snow affect a lot of people. This affects the Ohio River Valley headed into late Monday into early Tuesday, and then it's beginning to approach the Northeast this coming Tuesday, and we just see a lot of snow throughout the interior Northeast, and even further southward towards New York City, you might be getting involved in snow. You're still involved in the heavy snowfall, and throughout southeast Pennsylvania, you're still going to get a decent amount of snow from this, despite what it looks like on the GFS forecasted radar, where it looks like you're getting freezing rain or sleet from this. But I assure you that you guys are also getting involved in snow as far south as Philadelphia and even just northwest of Washington, D.C. So you guys need to keep that in mind, that just because you're in the pink does not mean you'll miss out on the snow. And in fact, it could enhance the risk of a freezing rain there. We have to see how the levels of the atmosphere react to in this situation where we have a fairly strong low pressure system moving against this ridge. Very cool ridge. We have to see how they interact to see if there's going to be a freezing rain threat. However, it seems like the GFS is leaning towards bringing just enough freezing rain to at least be a concern potentially for a lot of Mid-Atlantic. But again, I'm going with a forecast 5 days out. There's still a lot of uncertainty when we're talking about forecast 5 days out. So there definitely could be some changes because the computer models don't have that much historical data just yet to really forecast anything beyond 5 days out with confidence. And the European model, however, one thing that I find interesting is that both the European and the GFS model are in agreement that a very similar scenario will occur, and they're pretty much agreeing that with each other in a lot of ways, because there's going to be a low pressure system moving up the southeast, bringing a lot of showers throughout the southeast, and then obviously a lot of snow throughout the Ohio River Valley and headed into the northeast as well as the southeast. Let me go back a little bit to show you guys, because they're very similar in terms of forecast. Because if we take a look at the European 102 hours from now, let's compare it to the GFS model 102 hours from now, and you see that they're almost exactly identical when it comes to the width of the precipitation and how large of an area that precipitation covers, where it covers the entire southeast and the Midwest. And even if we move a little bit forward to 120 hours from now, you see that the confidence remains mostly high regarding the forecast of this storm, thanks to how similar they are in terms of the track of this storm. There are definitely differences, like the European model still has a low pressure center closer towards southeast at this point, while the GFS is a little bit further to the northeast. But for the most part, when it comes to the precipitation map, they're pretty much spot on regarding the radar of the storm, or the forecasted radar. So this is giving a little bit more confidence than typical when we're talking about a storm 5 days out. But again, drastic changes could occur with both computer models. Even if they are agreeing with each other, that definitely does not mean that we are certain or very confident of the forecast, because again, 5 days out, I want to emphasize that a lot could change, but based off of what both the computer models are saying and how they've been persisting on this for a good while, it's almost seemingly likely that we're going to see some sort of major snowstorm from this low pressure system coming off the Northwest Pacific, especially since we're in a negative Arctic oscillation. We've been seeing this jet stream dip just dominate the United States for the past several weeks now, and it's pretty much going to set the stage for a major snowstorm in the eastern half of the United States. Based on my experience, I think this will happen. There still could be some changes, like maybe the jet stream dip isn't as pronounced as maybe the computer models forecast, but based off of my experience and what we've been experiencing for the past several weeks with how the the jet stream is positioning itself, I'd say it's more likely than not we're going to see at least some sort of snowstorm in the eastern half of the United States, and it could bring just a lot of snow and impact millions of people if both of these computer models were correct, or either one of the computer models are correct. However, there's still uncertainty. What could change the forecast really depends on how far south this ridge goes, and it depends on how strong northwesterly winds are, because obviously since the westerly winds are weak, we need another force that would bring the colder air further southward, and that force would be northwesterly winds. So let's zoom out a little bit to see what current patterns would affect the forecast. So here's the forecast pretty much as of right. This is the current surface map of the United States or all of North America right now, and you see the jet stream dip. While it is noticeable, it's dipping down far south enough to bring cooler than average temperatures throughout the Midwest and Northeast. It isn't anywhere near what the computer models are forecasting later during its forecast run. So the cold air is still, while it is affecting the northern United States, it still isn't that far south to create a major sort of snowstorm. However, that will change because eventually I think because there's going to be stronger northwesterly winds with this, thanks to increased amount of low pressure systems moving through the northern Atlantic and throughout Canada. There's going to be a strong northerly wind with this, and that'll bring the cold air further southward, and that'll force this ridge to move a little bit further southward than it wants to, and that will bring the cold air further south. And it also will be enhanced by the fact that this low pressure system is going to come off pretty much straight from Alaska, and as it moves southward, thanks to this ridge shearing this storm southward, it's going to bring a lot of cold air with it, since obviously it originated well to the north where a lot of the Arctic air is located, and that's going to bring a lot of that Arctic air further south to create and set the stage for that unstable air in the United States. So what could change this forecast? Well, for one thing is that maybe the northerly winds, or maybe this low pressure system located in the North Atlantic isn't strong enough or powerful enough to really divert the position of this high pressure system, or really maneuver this high pressure system to a point where it moves further southward, and as a result, that will create a less unstable environment, and that'll pretty much make the storm move a little bit further northward to where it won't strengthen as much and it won't affect as many people, or the precipitation area won't be as large. However, if this ridge were to move a little bit further southward and along with this low pressure system, that would mean an even bigger storm. And another key thing we have to keep in mind as well is the ridge that's located, pretty much a Bermuda ridge. That's pretty much standard to see all throughout the year. We have to see how much ridging there is, because if there's a little bit of a stronger ridge that is a little bit closer to the southeast coast, and that would mean it would move more in a straight northerly direction, where most of the east coast of the United States, it will be primarily a rain threat, while the Midwest will likely see all the snow and potentially a more major snowstorm. However, if this ridge is a little bit weaker and the ridge is a little bit further to the east, and that would allow this storm to move a little bit more to the east as well, where a lot more of the northeast and potentially a lot of the southeast states like Mississippi, Arkansas, and maybe the northern portion of Louisiana will get some snow from this. So we have to really see how these factors play out over the next several days, and the computer models will continue to detect that, and it really all depends on this ridge right here, how far south this goes, and how dominant this ridge is in the Atlantic. So let's zoom in now and take a look at the snowfall forecasts based off of what the GFS and the European model is forecasting. So let's take a look right now. Again, this is assuming 1 inch of rain equates 10 inches of snow. And if this storm were to come for fruition, at least this scenario, then you see that this would be a major snowstorm for millions of people, affecting millions of cities across the United States. And, well, not millions of cities, I don't know what I said there, but it'll impact a lot of cities throughout the East Coast and the Midwest of the United States. And you see that just a large area of over 6 inches, I'd say 6 to 10 inches throughout Oklahoma, and this extends to Arkansas and Tennessee, states you typically don't see that much snow during the year. And even as far south as Louisiana is getting a good area of 3 to 6 inches, and even the southern coast of Louisiana. And this snow extends as far south as Houston, Texas, and this goes to Mississippi as well, where you could experience some snow if the GFS forecast model was correct. However, the worst of the snow is in the northeast, where there's a good area of over a foot of snow extending through Pennsylvania, through West Virginia, and this even extends a little bit to New Jersey and Maryland and New England. So this would be a major snowstorm if the GFS model was correct. So now let's take a look at the European model's snowfall forecasts. And you're going to see that the European is also leaning on bringing a major snowstorm overall, where you see a good area of over 6 inches of snow throughout Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, and also Arkansas as well, and a good area of 3 to 6 inches throughout Texas. And then the heaviest snowfall is expected to be in the northeast, where 6 to 12 inches for a large area of northeast would be forecasted if the European model, this current scenario, was correct, which extends to Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania seems to be the sweet spot in terms of the snow from based off of what the European and the GFS model are saying. And while they are fairly similar, they're right around the ballpark in terms of similarities, the GFS and the European model, when it comes to the snowfall forecast, there are some key differences, such as the European doesn't take as much snow further southward, like southern Louisiana and Houston, and a lot of Mississippi is missing out on the snow entirely. And another key thing as well is that there's a little bit less snow overall throughout the Midwest and the Ohio River Valley, and a little bit in the Northeast, but for the most part, they seem fairly similar in terms of the snowfall forecast. And that's at least something we want to see. We want to see the computer models agree, which gives us more certainty with the forecast. But again, 5 days out, a lot could change. Like I said, it really all depends on where this ridge in Canada moves and how far south it moves, as well as this low pressure system, because that'll help us determine how much unstable air there will be and how this jet stream positions itself. And as well, and we also need to keep track of this Bermuda high, to see how close or how far it is, because that'll definitely help us determine the track of this storm. So in terms of my current snowfall forecast based off of what the European and the GFS model is currently forecasting, you see that I'm not giving specific numbers just yet, because we're still very far from the actual event from occurring. There's still a lot of days. We're still 5 days out. So I don't want to give you guys the false assumption of giving you guys exact details in terms of numbers, but I decided to list it based off of how much snow is currently expected and what at least you should expect. And you should, as of right now, expect the heaviest snow in the Northeast. Heavy snow in the lighter pink, and then moderate snow in the darker blues, and lighter snow in the lighter blues. So this could definitely change, and I might give I might give actual numbers in terms of how many inches or so a little later, maybe a little bit later in my videos. Well, I will eventually, because this storm is likely to happen. But as of right now, I'm gonna just stick to just naming or describing how much snow you should expect, because I don't want to give you guys specific snowfall accumulation forecast just yet, because there's still a lot of uncertainty and this forecast is still subject to change. So I don't want to give any false assumptions to any of you guys regarding this snowstorm. But yeah, guys, this looks to be major. And at least stay aware of this throughout the eastern half of the United States, because this could be major and one of the biggest snowstorms we've seen this season, or maybe in a long time, because this would affect just a lot of people throughout the United States if this were to come for fruition. And just at least stay aware of this throughout the eastern half of the United States. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.